Right.
the HEPA filters.
Hmm.
And, you know, she feels fairly good about it. But in the meantime, she got a text she got an email rather, that somebody that was in the office last Wednesday tested positive.
Okay.
Fully vaccinated, tested positive.
Yeah, I mean, she can just get a quick test just to be sure.
She tested already. She tested
Oh, so
already.
then she's fine.
So it happens. People think it's over and it's not.
Jeremy and I were just talking about that before everyone started coming on. World's not, it's going to change. How much better it's going to be?
Isn't there a new variant out now? Didn't I hear something about that? A new variant?
That's what they say.
About where I put my paperwork.
Hi, Julio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, new variants are afoot.
New variants are what?
Are afoot, are abound, are everywhere. So take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
Julio, it's now 6. I'm going to start the webinar.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Yes,
Cynthia, put that cutie in the picture.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said. I missed what,
What Joan said?
yes,
Me too.
Joan, there was something playing over you. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking Cynthia to put that cutie in the picture.
Oh.
Oh. Uh-huh. What kind of beverage do you have, Pat?
Unfortunately, it's water. I'm still on medication.
Gotcha.
We'll give it just about another minute, folks. Thanks for your patience.
Julio, when you're ready, I'll call roll.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Jeremy, if you can go ahead and call the roll.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to mute. Well, everybody is muted. When I call your name, please unmute yourself. Acknowledge that I've called your name. I will then acknowledge you and then mute yourself again. I am only calling committee members. If you are a board member but not a committee member, I will be writing your name down, but I will not be calling your name. Let's start with Julio Pena III.
Here.
Thank you. Nicholas Azadian. Mohammed Bahi. Joan Body.
Here.
Thank you. Stacy Boyd. Cynthia Felix. Oh, I'm sorry. Stacy Boyd. Cynthia Felix.
Here.
Thank you. Anthony Gilio. Damaris Gonzalez. Kenny Guan. Nicole Huang.
Here.
Thank you. John Johnston. Beverly Kleinman.
Present.
Thank you. Arelis Martinez. Marilyn Melman. Rovika Rajkishan.
Here.
Thank you. Julio, roll is called.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Youth and Education Committee meeting. We have one item on the agenda this evening. It is to hear and talk about the new school PS 958 that is currently being built in the final stages on 36th Street and 5th Avenue. It is always very exciting to hear and talk about the new schools that are opening in our district. It is a conversation that we have talked about for as long as I have been on the board. A conversation that Joan, our very own Joan Body, has fiercely advocated for many, many years. And particularly this school, we're very excited to learn more on the school design and how we, as board members and as community residents, can educate our community members about. So I'm very excited to introduce everyone to Emily Shapiro, who can educate us on this school and how it is going to integrate into our school, into our community. So I will turn it over to Emily, who will dive us into the new school.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm super excited to, have a chance to speak with you all about what we have so far and to engage you hopefully in some of the design work if you're interested. I know, as you said, that this is something that you all have been advocating for a long time. So I want to stress that what I'm going to share is really the starting point. We had our first design meeting, which was, I think, represented a diverse group of community members and families and teachers, and it was amazing, but we want to continue to do that. We want to grow our design team and we want to hear from you guys. So at the end, I'll also share sort of some of the ways that we can do that, and I'll definitely leave a lot of time for discussion and questions because I want to hear from you. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Perfect. So much of what I'm about to share is what I've been sharing during the information sessions with families. I added a little bit of different information that I thought you guys might be particularly interested in. But thank you for having me. My name is Emily Shapiro and I'm the project director. So I've been in this role since January, sort of just planning and working with the community. For the whole month of January and most of February, I was just meeting with families and different community organizations to get a sort of sense of what has been going on and what the needs are. And then we started doing our outreach in mid-February. So I'll give you a little bit of information about me and where this idea has come from, though I think you guys know better than I do. And then again, some of what we're thinking about in terms of our mission and vision and our core values, and a little bit about the enrollment plan, which I know there will be questions about and we'll have a chance to talk about it. Some of what we're thinking about the learning experience and the supports, and how we're planning to engage parent and community as partners. So about me, I'm a born and raised Brooklynite, and I attended public school here from pre-K through the end of high school. And I also have a 3-year-old daughter. So while I'm planning this school, navigating the pre-K application process myself. We don't live in Sunset Park, we live in Prospect Heights. So she'll be going to our zone, hopefully going to our zone school in Prospect Heights. And I have been working in District 75 as a special educator for 20 years. I started out as a paraprofessional, and then I taught kindergartners in District 75 for about 10 years before I became an instructional coach, and then moved to an assistant principal role. And that's what I was doing up until I switched over into this project director role in January. I was an assistant principal of a 12-sided District 75 school for students K through 21, all throughout Queens. And while I was there and sort of throughout my career, I've really been passionate about building more inclusive opportunities for students in District 75. So as a classroom teacher, I was moving about 50% of my students every year out of self-contained classrooms into an inclusion setting. And I really have always seen that as sort of the best route for District 75 students, is to get them back into their community schools. And I also have been concerned about the way that we're talking about equity in our city without thinking about this particular cohort of students who really don't have equitable opportunities, specifically because they don't have the chance to go to school in their neighborhood often. They're bused, outside of their community to get the services that they need. And so I've always really felt like we can't truly talk about equity without considering our District 75 students. And I often feel that that cohort is left out of the conversation. And in addition to that, I know District 75 has, its strengths and weaknesses, but something that I really loved about working in District 75 is that you really develop a strong knowledge base and expertise on how to support diverse learners, because you're working with a team of experts. You have speech therapists, psychologists, BCBAs, like everybody collaborating. So when I was a teacher and as a coach, I really had a chance to learn a lot of specialized knowledge that I don't feel community schools always have access to. And so, that's another reason that I've been really passionate about building a more inclusive community, is to bring all of that knowledge that we have a chance to develop out into all of the schools. So like I said, you guys sort of know where this idea came from. And Visión Futuro is a group of advocates and families in the community who have been working for this for many years. And I'm so happy and lucky to have met them. And I wish I met them many years ago, because at the same time that they've been doing this advocacy work, I was working with a group of educators to create a proposal for a fully inclusive school around everything I was just saying, which is to provide proactive supports to all young children and engage the whole community in achieving this goal, to make sure that students don't ever have to be bused an hour outside of their home, home community to get the services that they need. And something that I haven't shared in any of the other meetings, but I thought I would share here just to give you guys a sense of sort of where I started this work. Back in February 2020, in the Imagine process, we had to create a video to sort of pitch our idea. And so I'll share that with you guys so you have a sense of where I'm coming from. This wasn't designed with Sunset Park in mind. I was working in Queens at the time, but I do believe that there's a lot of alignment between what we were working towards in that process and what the community of Sunset Park has been advocating for. It's only 90 seconds.
When the Department of Education put out a call for new school ideas, we, a group of special educators, saw an opportunity to address a big problem. Our special education students often have to travel long distances to receive the services they are entitled to. This restricts access to after-school programming and creates complications for parent and community engagement. As we began planning, we imagined a school that would remove this barrier and serve our students locally alongside their peers. In the process, we learned that our special education students aren't the only ones navigating the issue of distance. In New York City, only 60% of all students attend their zone school. And when you break this down, it services some pretty glaring inequities, especially in regards to race and socioeconomic status. We need a fresh idea to address an ever-present problem in our city's schools. Instead of meeting students' needs across buildings and providing different opportunities in different neighborhoods, we envision a place where all means all. One single school that challenges and supports children of neurodiverse and complex identities to learn in and partner with their home community. The QSIA wants to rethink the way we do zone schools by creating a personalized and challenging learning experience for every student. Students will benefit from a team of transdisciplinary experts who will collaborate to ensure that they are achieving at their highest ability. From play-based learning in the early years to problem-based learning in the upper grades, students will learn to advocate for and support the needs of their community. A combination of strong foundational skill instruction and a heavy focus on arts education will ensure the students of QSIA can explore their passions and discover new ones. Most importantly, students at QSIA will learn how to build and participate in an inclusive community in which we care for and uplift one another.
So again, this was something that we designed before I ever took on this role, but I just wanted to give you sort of a sense of, my background. And I thought this was a good example of sort of where I'm coming from. But this is the draft of our mission and vision that we're working on with the design team. And that is from my own experience and everything that I've learned from meeting with everybody over the past couple of months, where I believe we might want to start. So I'll read it out for interpretation. The mission is PS 958 is a flexible space for learning that is universally designed, supports neurodiversity, and is culturally responsive. Students engage in challenging real-world exploration that utilizes research-backed instructional practices, builds critical thinking skills, and fosters creativity. The school community will work collaboratively to design a student-driven learning experience that supports and affirms the intersection and complexities of all identities, especially those that have been historically marginalized. And the vision: through the strategic design of an inclusive community with high quality instruction and support, the members of PS 958 will create a replicable school model in which every student is celebrated for their strengths, challenged at the highest level, and graduates with the skills needed to be advocates for themselves, their peers, and their community. So I think what we hope is that as new schools are being built, if we can truly design a model that is inclusive and serves every single student, that's something that we can utilize to support other schools that are developing, and perhaps even schools that have been developed already to do the same. And thinking about the core values, I won't sort of read the breakdown, but a concept that we're thinking about is this idea of a ripple effect. It's something that I really connected with when I started coaching teachers, is understanding how you can have an impact when you're working with a group of students, but you can have a ripple effect when you start supporting teachers and helping them to develop into better teachers, and then they ripple out that effect into groups of students. And I think that as a school community, in terms of dismantling ableism within the school, and then thinking about how we can ripple that out into the community, and how students can learn about social justice and start to think about their impact and the impact on their school community, and then the impact on the larger community, and then the impact on climate and the world around them, is sort of an idea that I think could and should be central to the work that we're going to do. So a little bit about the enrollment plans, and I want to stress that this is the beginning. It's not something that I really had much of a part in deciding. So this is where we're going to start. But I think one key point, and something that is in the first word of our mission statement, is that in order for this to be a truly inclusive school, we're going to have to be really flexible and responsive as we grow, to think about how this model needs to grow and change as we enroll students and learn about the needs of those particular students. So this is where we're starting. We're planning to open with 3K, pre-K, and kindergarten in year 1, and then after that we'll grow 1 grade each year through 5th grade. In 3K and pre-K, we're going to offer integrated co-teaching classes. So in the 3K, that's 15 students, a general education teacher, a special education teacher, and 2 paraprofessionals. And in the pre-K, that would be a similar model, but with 18 students. And then as well in the pre-K, we're hoping to offer a general education classroom, which would be 18 students, 1 para, 1 teacher. But in that classroom, there perhaps could be a SEEIT or other support services pushing in for students who might not need an integrated co-teaching classroom, but could still need support. From kindergarten through 2nd grade is where you're going to see sort of a breakdown of a lot of different programming and supports. So some of the programs are the AIMS program, which is a 6 to 2 to 1 class, 6 students, a classroom teacher, a full-time speech therapist, and a paraprofessional, and a BCBA, which is a behavior therapist who pushes in and supports the design in that classroom. And that classroom really is modeled after an ABA therapy environment. So it's very intensive. It's typically only offered in a District 75 school. This will be the first time that we'll have it in a community school. And it's really to support language development and the baseline social skills that students need to get into, higher ratios and integrated classrooms as they get older. A Horizons program, which is also an 8 to 1 to 1 class for students who maybe have some of those baseline skills, are sort of approaching grade level with their academic skills, but they might need a little bit of support with, ABA principles or language development, or a little bit of support with social skill development. And then as well, we'll have an ICT classroom, which will cap at 20 to 22 students, also with a general education teacher and the special education teacher, and a reading specialist who's going to have Orton Gillingham training, and a general education classroom as well. But because of the inclusive model, we say general education, but every class will have opportunities for students who may be in the 6 to 1 to 1 or the 8 to 1 to 1 class to be pushing in, based on things that they're interested in, based on their strengths. All students are going to participate in an inclusive physical education and music program. So it's labeled general education, but no classroom will really be one or the other, because again, we're going to be designing with that flexibility in mind. And the goal that we're setting is that by 3rd grade, we won't need these self-contained classrooms anymore, because we'll have built a continuum of supports so that every student will be able to succeed in an integrated co-teaching setting by 3rd grade. And it might look different than what existing integrated co-teaching settings look like. And we might be having to build the ship as we fly it, sort of, by creating a program in which a BCBA is supporting in an ICT classroom if students still require that, and really leveraging all of the support staff members to make sure that students can succeed in the least restrictive setting. I just have a little bit of data that I can share about our enrollment applications so far. I only have access really to 3K and not too much information, but I thought you guys might be interested, so I put this together. The school is, as of now, a choice school, which means that anybody can apply to the school. Students in District 15 get priority, but anybody is welcome to apply. So far for 3K, we have 60 applications, and 62% of those applicants come from Sunset Park, 9% come from other District 15 communities, mostly Ditmas Park and Park Slope. 10% of the applicants are from Bay Ridge, 8% from Windsor Terrace, and then 11% from all over the place. We even have a couple of applicants from Staten Island, but the vast majority of the applicants to 3K are from the Sunset Park community thus far. Hopefully I'll gain access to the kindergarten enrollment information soon, and I'd be happy to share that down the line if you guys are interested. So a little bit about what we're thinking about with our learning experience. As the video said, we all agree that a strong foundation in literacy is going to be really important, especially as students get into kindergarten. And so we will absolutely be training our teachers in structured literacy, which is what the research says works for all students. And I was at the PAR project meeting this morning, and I heard that strongly echoed in the families that I had a chance to speak with, that they want to see a lot of phonics support in their children's classrooms, but not just phonics. The science also shows shows that language development is equally as important, and especially because we're going to be starting with such young children, that will be a huge focus as well. So developing students' vocabulary by providing them with rich experiences and enhancing their background knowledge so that when they start to read books, they can really connect that language, develop that comprehension that they need to understand what they're reading, as well as sound it out. Project and problem-based learning is going to be a big part of the school. So that I'll talk a little bit more about how that will look from 3 years old on. But we really want students out in the community thinking about real problems and how their impact can support their community over time. This is also a really wonderful opportunity to leverage students' strengths and interests, and not just say, like, because you're a kindergarten student in a 6 to 1 to 1 class, you're going to be with those peers all day, but to say, oh, you have an interest in pizza making, and this guy down the hall as well has that interest. How can you guys work together to support some common goal in our school? So it really lends well to inclusive education. And as I said, strategic and meaningful collaboration is going to be really, really important. We're going to have a lot of different kinds of experts and specialists and therapists in the school. And oftentimes what you see is that those folks work in isolation of one another. So you have a speech goal and your speech therapist pulls you out and you work on that goal. But what we're really trying to build is a true team collaboration so that all of these stakeholders are supporting all of the students, especially when we're thinking about our 3K and 4K students and taking really that proactive approach. You know, what is the classroom teacher missing? And what can an occupational therapist's perspective offer to not just the students with IEPs, but to all of the students in the class to make sure that we're individualizing, that we're providing rigorous learning outcomes for every single student. And then partnering with families and community. Again, we want students to understand the real impact of their learning, and that can't happen if we're not partnering with the actual people that they have the opportunity to impact. And so far, I've learned, you know, there's a lot of really rich community organizations in Sunset Park, a lot of opportunity for students to explore, to build intergenerational relationships. And that's something that we're really talking about in the design team. And I would also love your feedback on. So this is just a little bit more about what we're thinking about with the inquiry process. In 3K and pre-K, students will really be, it will be very self-directed, and students will be sort of exploring their community and will be looking for the things that really spark joy for them, and letting that drive the learning and the inquiries that they're going to have. And then when we get into the K-2 area, that's when we're going to start sort of shaping that learning a little bit around themes that are community-based. So an example of that might be health and wellness, where all of the students are doing something that is aligned with the theme of health and wellness. And there are some common, you know, lessons that everybody's participating in, some common vocabulary development. But then within that, students will have a chance to think about what are their interests, what are their specific strengths, and choose sort of a course within the health and wellness track. So for example, there might be a student who really is drawn to kinesthetic learning, who really needs a lot of movement in their day, and they might be on a personal trainer team who's learning about different exercises and developing like an exercise routine that they can teach to the community for staying healthy. And there might be another student who's really interested in using clay to develop things, and they might be on a team creating artifacts about different healthy foods that you could eat. So really a way to give every student a chance to work on something that excites them, that draws on their strengths so that they can be celebrated. And then with those skills and that kind of base, by 3rd grade, we're really thinking about giving students a foundation of activism and letting them kind of organize around real problems that they see by gathering with their peers who have common interests and goals and learning how to collaborate to achieve those goals together. And here are some of the instructional practices that we're thinking about. And so you'll see kind of generally that starting in 3K, it's pretty much all exploratory center-based learning with student-driven inquiry. And it just starts to hone a little bit and a little bit as students get older. But we really don't want, and what we've heard over and over from the community as well, is that we don't want to lose that play-based learning. We don't want to lose that exploration as students get into kindergarten and even as they go through 5th grade. But we just want to fold in that foundational academics that they need. So the inquiry process and student-based, student-driven inquiry will stay. Students will always have time to be outdoors playing and exploring, but we'll start to build in that direct phonics instruction as students get older. Linda Mood Bell Verbalizing and Visualizing is something that I'm really interested in. It is a language development program that teaches children about like concept imagery, which is really like making a movie in their mind. So lots of kids can read the word dog and they might even know what a dog is when they hear the word dog, but there's a whole different process for connecting what they read on the page to putting that word in their head and then making meaning out of it. And in my experience, just as much as students struggle with sounding out words and the phonics, that's something that we see as like a common struggle for kids. So something that we're thinking about as well. And as I said earlier, students will participate in fully inclusive music and gym. Arts will be integrated throughout the day, and we're going to plan for regular community meetings where students can share, where families can come in and share, where anybody from the community who might want to teach something or share about something that's happening can have a platform to do so, and where we can really start building our collective identity together. Something that we've already heard a lot from families is that we're going to need to have an early drop-off program. So we will, and we are surveying for kind of the ideal school day. Right now, it's looking like 8:30 to 2:50 is what families would like. And we are working on developing an after-school program with an existing early childhood center, and they're also willing to develop this from scratch based on the feedback that we're getting from families, and serve all of the special needs students, which sometimes can be a challenge in finding an after-school program. If the DOE does continue the academic recovery program, which is a free after-school option for students with IEPs, we would definitely participate in that as well. So this is sort of like a summary of a lot of the supports that I already shared about. And for those of you out there who maybe don't have kids with an IEP, I think it's good to think about how all of these things can really come together to support every single student. So a reading specialist, a BCBA, speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, special educators, ENL teachers, a small student to staff ratio, a sensory gym. How can those things support all kids? Well, having a reading specialist, for example, there might be students who come in and already know the basis of phonics. A reading specialist can help us think about how to push that student even further. Occupational therapists are amazing for helping students who maybe struggle with executive functioning. I was a student who always left my lunchbox at school and like never had it the next day, right? That's something that a team like this could really nip in the bud with some visual schedules. And those are the kinds of things we want to be thinking about. Speech therapists, I've seen them do incredible work with picky eaters, and it's a common thing that we see with all 3-year-olds, something that we would have an opportunity to focus on. This idea of focusing on language development and vocabulary, which will be really heavy in our self-contained classrooms, is a lot of the strategies that also benefit multilingual learners. And just in a general ability to individualize for each student. And I think also important to build support for classroom teachers. Sometimes when they're struggling with a student, they feel like there's nowhere really to go to get the information they need. And so having this really collaborative team approach will help our teachers to feel less burnt out, to feel like they have the support they need to support our students. Something that I want to name that I know is probably in your heads already is like, where is the bilingual program? And I hear you before you even say it. something that we discussed when I came on, and unfortunately something we're not going to be able to offer in our first year, but it's already been raised as something that's missing. And it doesn't mean that we can't have it perhaps next year or the year after that if we see that that need is there. But we are working towards building that into the after school programming with the program that we already talked about, and also in discussion with New York City Children's Theater, and perhaps offering a bilingual program after school there. But here are some ways that we are thinking about supporting our multilingual learner families. Definitely language representation and community representation in our plans for hiring, making sure that everything is translated and that workshops are offered in multiple languages, so not just translated. We've been in communication with all community partners who represent different cohorts of communities in Sunset Park. And as I said, a large focus on vocabulary and language development for all students. And here are some of what we're thinking about for social emotional learning. As I said, those weekly community meetings will really give us a chance to work around themes of equity, diversity, dismantling ableism, and a chance for us to build a collective identity. Structured teaching is something that I've learned a lot about over the years that really supports this executive functioning piece, which research shows is paramount to student success later in life. Having a BCBA on staff will allow us to really be strategic with our behavior interventions for any students who might need it. And we're planning to integrate sensory supports, across classrooms, across the school environment. And universal design is really at the foundation of our thinking. And this is the idea that when you are planning and designing for the highest need population, that will ultimately benefit everybody. And so if you don't know a lot about this, but you're interested, this is a great place to start. And I recommend this website to everybody. Some features of the building, as you guys know where it's located, it's definitely going to be accessible. It's going to have 2 playgrounds and a sensory gym. It has a large project room and a music room, a parent lounge and a workshop room, and a library that's going to be stocked. And something that's come up a lot in the parent meetings is, will the bathrooms be attached in the pre-K and 3K? And yes, it will have bathrooms in the classrooms. So a lot of very exciting spaces for us to think creatively about how to utilize. It's just the beginning of thinking about how families will engage with us. As I said, we have about 15 families who are part of the design team right now, as well as I'm meeting on a regular basis with parents, who are interested in the school and getting their information and feedback. And we're using surveys like obsessively to try to engage more families. And I'll be participating in the PAR project, which just today learned a tremendous about some of the things we should be thinking about. We're hoping to engage the families in choosing the project-based learning themes and in having them work with their children to design their courses of study. So like, what are the things that your child is most interested in, having them be a part of that conversation and choosing the courses. We're hoping to broadcast those weekly community meetings. We know that not every family is going to be able to come up and share something in the middle of the day. I know that I can't do that, but I might be able to pop onto a Zoom and read a story, if that was accessible in my daughter's school. Or maybe I don't have time to do that, but I can listen, in a headphone to what we're talking about while I'm working. So just trying to offer lots of different ways for families to be engaged. We want to have open houses where we're not just kind of showcasing the school, but also inviting families to understand the instructional strategies that we're using. We're going to be working with NYU to get some pediatric, behavioral, and hopefully mental health support directly in the school so that families can get things that they need on site. Ensuring that families have access to the OPWDD process and service coordination. And how would you like to see families be engaged? Here are just some of the sort of partners that we've been talking with. Uprose, who's right across the street, and they have a hydroponic garden that they've offered for us to work with them on, as well as running workshops, having their youth come and work with our students. The Children's Theater, hopefully we're going to get funded to have an after-school program with them. NYU, as I said, Sunset Park, Sunset Spark wants to work with us on developing our students, STEM and computer tech knowledge, even from the earliest age. We've been working with the Chinese American Planning Council and Center for Family Life to make sure that we're thinking about the different needs of different sort of cohorts in the community. Vision Futuro and Laura, who I think is here, they've been instrumental in both helping me to understand sort of the foundation of this work and where we need to go, and also supporting the outreach. And Greenwood is right across the street. And I think we can build over time, like a really meaningful relationship as students can use that for exploration. I've learned so much about what it has to offer in terms of like nature exploration. And like I said, I've lived in Brooklyn my whole life. I had no idea. So I'm really excited to do some of that as well. And just so you guys know, as I said, we're using a lot of surveys, and we're doing our best to post everything. Every design meeting that we have, we're giving out a survey with questions that come up in the meeting so we can try to get more information from others. And this link on the side is to share the design process. We've had some meetings that we've written about the outcomes of. Every time that we have an open house and there's questions, we post the answers there. This is sort of the feedback that we've gotten from the first few information sessions, where we reached over 200 families. So far, we've had kind of an even split, mostly, more 3K families in attendance. 65% of families who have attended don't have children with IEPs, 35% do. People are really connecting with the learning experience and the idea of an inclusive model, which is very exciting. And people want to hear more about the enrollment plan. And if you're one of those people, there is a link on this design process website, which I can share in the chat at the end, which breaks down kind of every single program, links to the DOE information about it in the process for that program. So that's it. Here's all the information about how you can reach us. And I will open it up for questions. And as well, if you are interested in joining the design work, you're welcome to email me and participate in that. Okay, so do I just call?
Thank you so much. Well, first, thank you so much for the presentation. It was incredibly thorough, thoughtful, and I feel like it's really exciting to see the work that is going into the new school, and just really a little overwhelming just to see all of it, but also just really exciting. I have a lot of questions, as you can see, some board members have a lot of questions, and I know some members of the public will have a lot of questions. But one, I wanted to ask, because I know you talked about after school programming, and specifically working with students with disabilities. And this is part comment and part question. So in my day job, I work with after school programs in Red Hook and East New York. And I also happen to work with an after school program at PS32, which also works with, which has an AST and I think a Horizons program. I'm happy to also share like the strengths and challenges of that program. It's a city-funded after-school program. It's called a Compass, and I think it would work well. But many of the challenges that the city-funded programs, it's pretty much like they give a base number to everyone, and for PS2 in particular, that's not necessarily going to work. So I think it needs more to support the extra services, because our biggest challenge is always we need more services, and the school, and we have an amazing partnership in that building. Principal Watson Nadine is like amazing. and they have like been wonderful in providing support, but that shouldn't be the school's responsibility. That should be the after school, the city in general providing the support. And so all that to say, the city contract doesn't go far enough in that particular school to support the services. So I just wanted to mention that the city provide like you can get a free after school program, but it in particular for working with students with disabilities, it does not go far enough. Um, um, and then I know a couple of weeks ago we had a meeting, a joint meeting with the Education and Youth Committee and the Transportation Committee around some safety concerns, particularly around 36th Street and Fifth Avenue. And because I can't recall, I don't remember if you happen to have been there or not, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts on like what if you have heard any concerns from families at any of the meetings around 36th Street, and if were there any additional concerns that you may have had regarding that intersection?
Yeah, so one concern that has come up in survey feedback is around parking on 36th Street from families or from members of the community, and if the teachers will be parking in the neighborhood. And I believe that, yeah, there won't be parking on site in the building. So I want to be transparent about that. And in our design team meeting, we spent quite a bit of time talking about that particular intersection. I myself have kind of like just stood there and observed the traffic patterns, and it is definitely a concern. So I wasn't able to attend that meeting, but I did come to the last community board meeting to share some of the thoughts that the design team had around that, which were to like put safety signs along Fifth Avenue well before you get to that intersection, and perhaps ask for like a reduced speed limit on that corner. Also, the sort of two-way that you can get into the gas station on the corner seems like it could be potentially dangerous, because if buses are double parked, people might try to U-turn through the gas station. So thinking about perhaps like blocking one side of the gas station, maybe using a left turning signal there, because the buses are coming, as you know, from every direction. So maybe something to regulate those turning signals were just some of the ideas. But I'm learning a lot about city planning through this process as well. And I would love feedback on that as we go. You know, I'm an instructional leader, but not so much a city planner, but I'm learning it. And I can tell that is definitely an area of concern. So feedback on that is welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I'll start turning over to some board members. And I'll start with Cesar.
Thank you, Julio. Hi, Emily. Good to see you.
Hey, you too.
So I guess first of all, thank you for coming out. And you know, I think what I just want to quickly say to all of my fellow board members, we should be really proud of what's happening here. And you know, I want to do a couple of shout outs to some folks, starting with Joan. You know, this is the, you know, a culmination of work that Joan started many years ago, and here we are continuing to sort of reap the benefits of that work. So thank you, Joan, for everything you've done. But you know, I think I also want to really mention Visión Futuro and Laura, right? I think you know, between Visión and all of the fierce moms that are part of that organization, they have really driven this agenda for this community, and I think we should recognize that. And obviously, you know, there are so many other people who are joining and who are contributing, and I think I guess that's sort of the other appeal that I want to make, is that we have a real opportunity here, right? I think we have a real opportunity to address equity, right? There's no question that, you know, we have so many equity issues across our educational system, but especially within the context of special education, I think equity is something that we have a real opportunity to move the needle for families who have been historically underserved and marginalized in our community. And so I really want to encourage us to really lean into working with Emily on building the kind of community school that we deserve in Sunset Park, which is a community school that can really address the needs of all of our students, regardless of what their learning style is. I think there's no question that we can achieve a community school. And what I'm really excited about is, in having talked to Emily, we have a real partner in her. And what I would say is that we reciprocate and we really try to figure out how to continue to build the kind of school, again, that I think we have for a long time been needing and we deserve. And so, I think the prospect of us really building meaningful partnerships across our small businesses, our other schools, our community-based organizations, our anchor institutions like NYU, I think, we can create some like really amazing music if we do this work together. So Emily, thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to following up on some of the conversation we had, particularly the 0 to 3 stuff. I mean, I think again that's such an untapped frontier, and I'm glad you're open to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Felix.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily, for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. The first question I have, I know that right now PS 958 is a choice school, and thank you for sharing so far the number of applications you have received. So you said it's about 62% from Sunset Park. Are there going to be any admission priorities for students that reside in Sunset Park that you are aware of, or is that something that we could advocate for?
Yeah.
I know Laura and Vision Futuro fought very hard to get a school. So I would love to see that entire 62% and all that are interested, because to your video was perfect. It actually highlighted the issue that we had here in Sunset Park. Many of our students with special needs were being bussed out to other schools, right? So how ironic would it be that we opened this school and here we are busing out students to other schools? Lo voy a decir en español. Laura, le pregunté que si le pueden dar prioridad a los niños que están en Sunset Park, porque la escuela es para ese propósito, y quería saber si podían hacer algo de eso.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I should have addressed it like right off the bat. And you're right. The reason that I have been driven by this work is to create something that is in the community. And when I joined the team in January, I wrote my diversity and admissions application and I submitted it, but I was told that I was too late. And so it's ready to go for September of next year. And I will be advocating from the moment that diversity and admissions application process opens to make that priority for the upcoming year. And I'm really confident that we're going to do it. And this year, I've been really campaigning as much as I can to anybody who engages in this process. For example, the CPSE teams, the folks at the Ames and Horizons offices who make these decisions, to understand how important that is and how they need to work with us to prioritize that. And I do believe that we're getting through, but I know that what we need is to see it in writing. And unfortunately, this year, we're not going to have that, but I'm ready to go for September, and I can say for sure that next year that process will be formalized.
For this year, is there any way that we could provide our viewpoint or our support? You said you've been speaking to people that make the decisions, that we could say that to them as well. Sometimes I know they may hear it from you, and I know there's been planning meetings, but if there's any way we in the community could support that, I'm sure there's people that would be willing to send an email and just, again, reiterate the importance of that in this community.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any harm in sending some, unified message about it, even if it doesn't happen this year, but to make sure that everybody's head is in the right place for next year. That's sort of out of my hands in my role. But I think that there's absolutely no reason to not put that out there. And if you need support in thinking about that, I'm happy to work with you on it.
Great, thank you. And then my second question. So right now, the school does not have a name, correct?
Correct.
So I know that there's been some interest in this board in naming a school after Antonia Pantoja. So
Yeah.
we look forward to having a more deeper conversation with you on that, because that's something that we have been advocating for as a community board. And I know Pat Ruiz was
Yeah.
here from the Boricua Festival, has also been a fierce advocate for that. And it seems like a lot of what your school's vision and mission is exactly what Antonia Pantoja fought for, which is access and equity for all students. So it would be a great honor if we could get into that conversation. And thank you for the presentation. And last question, the hiring process. I assume that you're going through the same hiring process as the DOE. If there's people interested, they just apply directly to you?
Yeah, so it is actually a little bit different in the first year in that the UFT is a big part of the process. And so the hiring team, unfortunately, can't be people that I pick or members of the community. It will be representatives from the UFT and district representatives that are assigned. But the design team is going to work on creating the criteria that those folks will use to participate in the hiring process. So in our next design team meeting, we'll be outlining the things that we want to see in the folks that we hire. But yes, we will be posting all of the positions and people can apply through those postings. If you know people who are interested, do I have access to the chat? I have an email set up just for people to send resumes, and it's ps958hiring@gmail. So you can share that for now.
Thank you.
Sure. And I just wanted to respond to your comment about the naming. I also think that's a wonderful suggestion that Pat shared, and I really appreciated it. And I agree, it really is like the universe aligning in terms of the values. And so I think we're going to be waiting until the school opens to complete the naming process. But when we do it, we will absolutely be engaging everybody and inviting you guys in to participate in that. And we won't just be making a unilateral decision by any means. So it will come up again and we will all participate in that conversation.
Thank you, Emily. We look forward to supporting in the opening of the school.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Thank you. Joan?
Emily, I want to thank you for your presentation. It answered some of my questions. So I'm just going to make a comment that I think this is a wonderful endeavor that you've taken under, and I am excited to see it in operation because it seems that this will be a first for me, where it is so different and so hands-on. And it's great that there's only going to be up to 22 students in a room. That to me is very, very important. So I'm excited. I'll see you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you. Zach?
Hey, hi guys. Thank you very much. It is very exciting. I share everybody's sentiment. I was going to follow up on Julio's transportation lead-in, which he did so well, as he always does. So we brought up the left turn signal with the DOT, and the way the DOT likes to work in a very archaic way is they like to wait for the problem to present itself and then do a study. But as you know, by walking out on that intersection, 36th and 5th Avenue, and observing the traffic patterns, everyone's just waiting for blocks and blocks for people to make a left turn. So it would seem to not take a lot of thinking outside the box to realize that would alleviate a lot of that traffic that already exists and will build up on for pickup and drop off. I love the idea of closing off one of the exits to the gas station, the 36th Street side, because all that it serves as is an exit. Nobody enters the gas station from that point. It's just an exit, and it is a treacherous exit at that. So that's something I definitely think we should visit. It's a private entity that owns that lot, so I'm not quite sure. We have to investigate how we go about closing that entrance, but I think it's definitely something worth looking at, and appreciate the transparency on the parking. That is always a big issue for residents wherever you go, certainly in this neighborhood. And a question, I missed a little bit of the presentation, but so in 6 years or 5 years, when you were operating at pre-K through 5th grade, how many pre-K classes and 3K classes do you anticipate being able to have at any given time?
I think we'll keep it as we're starting, which is with 1 3K and 2 pre-Ks. The building only has about 20 classrooms. And so because we want to make sure that we're, offering all of these different settings in one place, it was really tough to sort of jigsaw all of the different needs and actually get the school through 5th grade. So where we settled is 1 3K and 2 pre-Ks, but also hoping to be flexible and perhaps collapsing some of those self-contained classrooms as we get better at supporting students in ICT and then able to make room for more early childhood classes.
And then I also on the choice school, I know choice schools still have a zone. As for instance, PS10 is a choice school, and they have a zone they need to fulfill, and then they're a choice school after that. The school will have no zone that it serves? It would strictly be a choice school?
It will be District 15. My understanding is that the zone would be priority for students in District 15 before they would admit students outside of District 15. So I don't think I asked early on if we could be sort of zoned, but PS24 is the zone school. It's just down the block. So they said, you can't have 2 on the same street. But then there's some folks who walk back on that. So I think it's something we can revisit next year as well.
That makes sense. Okay, thanks.
Sure, thank you.
Pat?
Emily, thank you so much for presenting to the Education Committee. From your first presentation that I attended, I was very, very impressed. And if I am right, at that time, you were asked if you were going to be the principal. And I'm going to ask you that question again. Will you be? If you don't know, what is the process, and are you throwing your hat in the ring for it?
Yes, I'm absolutely going to be throwing my hat in the ring. The way that this works is that I'm the project director right now. The school doesn't exist. We don't have a budget. We don't have a team. It's just me. In July, the school officially opens in terms of like having a number that can be found in the system, and I will become the interim acting principal at that time, hopefully, if things continue on the path that they are. And then there will be a C30 process, just like there is for any other principal position or assistant principal position, where any interested parties who are certified can apply for the job, and a group of community, parents, teachers, UFT representatives interview all of those people and choose the right candidate.
Oh, I hope it's you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia Gonzalez?
Yes, hi. Emily, thank you for this presentation. My question is around, you said that you would have a social emotional learning component of the school. Can you elaborate more on that for me, please? What does that entail? And who are you going to be your partners in this event?
I don't think we've identified a specific community partner for social emotional learning as of yet. As a part of the Horizons program, the Rethink social emotional learning platform comes with that program, and there's training that supports that. And there's like a whole social curriculum that supports children with ASD that we'll also be utilizing. But the other things that I mentioned were just implementing mindfulness, which is something that District 15 has trainers who can do on site. So not necessarily bringing somebody in from outside to do that. And about having these weekly community meetings where we can sort of build our community identity together. But we haven't really nailed down, a specific program. I think the other pieces to that are utilizing all of our therapists and experts in the building to make sure that social needs and emotional needs are met. Like specifically, I'm really passionate about this executive functioning piece because I've seen that really hinder students' success, and it feels like something kind of simple that we can resolve through having those kinds of supports in place. But things that I'm interested in are, a responsive classrooms model, using, morning circle in the classroom. Like I know Morningside is utilized in some of the schools in the neighborhood to make sure that morning circle is always a place where they're checking in with students and using mood meters. But if you have feedback around specific programs that you've seen working, I would love to hear. Another program is there's Bears Everywhere. I have just observed when I went to K280, and that's where every student gets like their own teddy bear that they use for comfort throughout the day, and they like have a bed for it, and they sort of learn to advocate for when they need that to sort of self-soothe. And I thought that was great, and I'm looking into that as well. It's on the docket for our design team meetings, but if you have specific ideas, I would love to hear them and shoot me an email. We could talk about it.
So the weekly meetings are going to be basically for in-house staff people, and not community involvement in those
Oh,
meetings?
yeah, we hope to invite folks into those meetings like on a regular basis, including, to have people in to do read alouds about things that they're interested in, or to teach something that they're interested in, or, a time where maybe a class is workshopping a performance, or they want to share something all together, or a student is learning a talent and they want to share. So there'll be an opportunity for like an open mic, if you will. And definitely we will invite community members in.
Sounds exciting. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other board members. Are there any members of the public who would like to raise a question or comment? I see Sylvia. Go ahead, Sylvia Augusto.
Hi, Emily, this is a beautiful presentation. I'm really excited about this. And Joan, thank you so much. I know you worked very, very hard for this. And thank you for your service in our community. In regards to traffic there, one of the things that I did notice, because I have somebody that lives on that block, the buses are coming down that block from the depot. And they're not supposed to, I think. And then another issue is that there was, I don't know, because of the construction, I'm not sure, that I didn't notice, but there was a sign that no trucks are supposed to go down that block, and they still go down that block. So that's something that needs to be addressed, because it's just not good for that block, in period. And now with a school, it's worse. And another thing, will the bus stop used to be on 30, on that corner in front of the school. Is that still going to happen? Or are they going to leave it at 37th Street where it is right now? The Fifth Avenue bus. Thank you.
That's an excellent question. I'm not expecting you, Emily, to know the answer to that. And Jeremy, that's something that maybe we should ask maybe the MTA, what their plans are for the bus stop that was on 36th Street and Fifth Avenue.
They would be the appropriate party, yes.
Yeah, because that's actually an excellent point, because I don't think it would be appropriate to put the bus stop back in front of the school building. In my opinion, that should be a no parking. But I don't know what you think, Zach, but yeah, that's something we should think about.
Yes, and I can guarantee you that the MTA has not thought about that.
Yeah, that's, of course, they haven't. But thank you for raising that, Sylvia, because that's definitely something we should probably get ahead of now. Any other members of the public wishing to raise a question or comment, feel free to raise your hand. Okay. Cynthia, you'll have the last thought.
Just Emily, if you could share, or Jeremy, if someone could follow up. I know you said about the design team. I don't know if there's people that are interested in knowing more about that or popping in on one of the meetings.
Yeah,
I know it was on the slide, but it went quickly.
yeah, I mean, so as of now, we're meeting once a month for 2 hours on Monday evenings. And if you'd like to participate, are you guys able to, should I just post my email address as folks are leaving, so that if you're interested in joining that work, you can shoot me an email and I could share all of the dates.
Emily, you could do that, or you could email us the contact information and we'll share with the.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Well, thank you again very much for presenting. I'm incredibly excited to partner with you in the new school, and I think we're all very excited to welcome the new school into the community and just ensure that it is welcomed and successful, and really ensure that we get as many Sunset Park families enrolled and into the school. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming and participating, and hope you have a good evening.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you so much
Good
for having
night.
us. Have a
Good
good
night.
night.
Thank you, Emily.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.